Welcome back, Peekers. I'm Miranda.
And I'm Mackenzie, and this is your one-stop shop for storytelling
Tea spilling.
and to keep up with all the latest book talk drama that you have been missing out on.
Yes. Yeah,
Period.
Welcome back, guys. Okay, so we are going to be picking back up on the Throne of Glass book. We are actually finishing from chapter 41 to the end. So if you have not read that part, this is your warning. We will be telling the story as it was told to us. So if you don't want spoilers, leave the room.
You're in the wrong spot. You're in the wrong spot. Actually, you're in the right spot. Please stay.
No, yeah, please stay. Also, sorry for all the mixed signals. We always tell you guys to leave and then tell you to stay. So we're just girls. Okay, so we are, like I said, covering Throne of Glass, Sarah J. Maas's book, and it's the first book of the series, and now we are wrapping it up, and we're going to get ready to go into Crown of Midnight after this one. And I'm so excited because I keep saying, I'm like, Throne of Glass, it really starts to get going in Throne of Glass, but then you move on to the next book, and then things keep going there, and then you move into the next book, and things keep going there, and I'm like, writing these scripts are getting more and more like writing a novel.
No, seriously, I feel like all the books pick up even more and more and more. Like every single book picks up and up and up, and it's just so exciting. It's such a fun story.
It feels like I'm reading a TV show. Like there's just a new scene happening in every page. And so I'm like, I got to write this down. I got to remember this one. But it's all good and very entertaining. So we're excited to bring it to you guys. Okay, so let's recap from last week. So the last time we saw Selena, she had actually just caught Nehemiah in the library reading all about these word markings. And as we know, these word markings have been showing up between all these dead champions showing up. There's also these markings in the garden. So something is correlated with these word markings, and Selena's only hint is that Nehemiah knows about these things. So she's very sus about her, and she's worried that she's the one summoning these creatures or whatever it is that's killing the champions. The reason why she thinks it's Nehemiah is because they had a recent killing of a bunch of rebels in Elway, sent off by the king of Adarlan, unfortunately. So they had a huge massacre in her home country, and that would give her proper motive for wanting to kill everybody. But the only thing that's stumping Selena with this is why would she be targeting the champions and not the royal court? So that's why she showed up to the ball the night prior to make sure she wasn't trying to set up Dorian and all the other royals in the court. But she ended up leaving early. Nehemiah ended up leaving early and was not a suspect that night. And then that night, also at the ball, Dorian and Selena were dancing together for the entire night, which is a very big, bold move for the prince, who's the most eligible bachelor, to be dancing with one girl instead of entertaining a bunch of girls. So that was tea in itself. Everybody saw he was dancing with this mysterious woman because it was a masquerade ball, but everybody knew who it was. It was Selena. And Duke Parrington and Lady Caltaine also noticed this. And Lady Caltaine was like, something's got to go. This is not okay. Are we going to stand for this? And Duke Parrington told her, he was like, there's tea. We can actually sabotage her for the duel because the king doesn't want her and Dorian to be together either. So they devised a plan to sabotage Selena at the last final duel if she makes it that far. And that's where we ended off last week. So we're going to go ahead and pick back up from that ballroom night and continue on with our story time. So after the ball, Selena's like, I need to figure out what these word markings are because they keep showing up everywhere. I keep washing these word markings from underneath my bed and they keep reappearing. What the heck are these things and how can I stop this from happening to me? I don't want to be the next champion that gets got. So she's off into the search of answers in the library, reading the one book that she could find on word markings. So Selena's studying and reading this book about word markings, and she sees a note on the side of the page that she's reading. And it basically says that if you see these specific markings in the victim's blood, the Ridderak will grant you their strength for their flesh sacrifice. So learning two things here. The thing that's killing these creatures or the champions is the Ridderak. So whatever the heck that is, it's being summoned and it's eating them and it's giving whoever's summoning them their strengths, the victim's strength. So that's tea. And luckily, the other thing is these markings that were pointed out in the book were not the same markings that she's been seeing under her bed that she's been washing away. So she's like, okay, period. That's great. We're not going to be under attack, hopefully. But still, she knows that there's a pattern going on. And Selena has picked up that about 2 days before each competition, that's when a champion will get killed. So if her timing is correct, that means something should be happening tonight. Selena's like, fuck that. I'm not going to just sit around and wait for one of these creatures to get summoned and possibly come to me or possibly come to somebody else. I don't know what the motive is here, but something's happening and I know it's going to happen tonight. And she also knows that there's no way that they can be getting summoned in the castle, like open areas. It's a creature killing champions. That would not be, a casual sight. So she's like, okay, I bet there's something else going on in these hidden tombs that I found. So she goes through her corridor that's in her room and she follows down the tunnel and she's going down different ways, trying to see if she can find anybody. And she finds some new footprints going to and from in a different direction that she's never gone in before. So she follows these footprints and she's going up to where there's like this room at the end of the tunnel. It's got like a green aura going on around it and she can hear something chanting and it sounds very demonic. And she's like, please, please, please don't let this be Nehemiah because I will have to kill her, unfortunately. Like I love her so much, but if she's the one summoning these guys, then I'm going to have to kill her. So that's a dilemma in itself. I don't know what I would do if I found out my only friend was literally being a murderer, a serial killer murderer.
Well, and also if she did find Nehemiah there and had to kill her, can you imagine? Like that's a princess and she's an assassin. So she could very well go back to Endovier or be tried for that, start a new war, like all kinds of stuff.
I could just see that being so messy. So I am just so scared because I also know that Selena has just had really bad luck with her friends. So I would not be surprised at this point if it was Nehemiah. So we'll see what happens. She continues down this hall. And like I said, she hears this chanting going on by some demonic voice in a green glowing room. And she leans over to peek and see who it is that's doing this chant. And she sees it's Cain. Cain is the one summoning these creatures. He is sitting over here hunched over this black pit of nothing. And he's chanting like some demon. And he's calling out like some creature. He's summoning some creature, obviously the Ridderak most likely. And he is standing over the pit. This creature all of a sudden starts to get out of the pit. And Selena describes this creature as an ancient god nightmare, which sounds really scary if you ask me. I think we were talking about this before too, about Sarah J. Maas, like what she envisioned for the Ridderak. And we looked it up and it was kind of like a weird large bat thing. Like it looked like a bat, but also like a demon. It was huge. It had claws. It was scary.
Yeah, it looked like very scaly, skeletal, very long arms, almost like a dog-like body, but the size of a horse with very long teeth. Ugh, it looked like a very scary demon.
Scary demon. No. Get out of here. So Selena sees this guy come out of the pit and she's like, you know what? I've seen what I needed to see and I'm going to head out. I think I've got enough information on who is summoning these evil demons and I'm going to go. And I think I've seen enough. But then, Cain with his demonic powers right now, he hears her as she's trying to dip out and a gust of wind pushes her into his room. And he kind of looks at her and he's like, well, it wasn't supposed to be you tonight, but I guess it's going to be. And so he is basically like, you're going to be got tonight and we're going to leave you here in this room. She's stuck in the room with the Ridderak. Cain locks her in this room and she is like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm literally stuck with this demonic thing right here and I don't know how to get out of here. I have no weapons. Nobody knows I'm even down here. If I die down here, how is anybody going to find me? Like, this is such a terrible way to die. So she's like, I have to get out of here. I've got to think of a plan. Got to go. And she thinks of this terrible plan where she is trying to encourage this Ridderak to come after her. So she's standing in front of the door and she's like, hey, I'm doing a little jazz hands almost. And she's like, come on over here. And the Ridderak does. He charges her and she jumps out of the way at the last minute. He busts through the door because he's a big creature and he breaks down the door. And she takes that moment while he's like dazed and confused to sprint out and go down to Gavin's tomb, the tomb where she saw Elena and Gavin, because Gavin had all of his like historic weapons and stuff like that. So she knows at least there's a sword down there that she could grab to defend herself. So she's running, she's sprinting down the hall trying to find this tomb. She grabs the door, swings around, and grabs Damaris, which is Gavin's sword. And she grabs Damaris, and just as the Ritterak is cutting into this room, she jumps up and turns and stabs the Ritterak right in the head. It was a really epic kill, honestly. It was like a very fast-paced, scary moment. And was it an awesome kill? Yeah, it was. But did she get away without injury? No, she did not.
Did not get away without injury.
She was very close. But not quite. She did get bit a little bit. So she was like, this is not good, probably. I'm going to have to skedaddle out of here. I'm not feeling too great. She started feeling immediately terrible. So she's like, okay, the creature's dead. I need to go. So she's trying to get back up to her room. And she is barely alive when she gets back up there. Her hands are frozen. She can't see anything. She can feel her heartbeat getting slower. And she is trying her best to make sure nobody sees the secret passage. She's covering it back up. And just as she finishes covering it up, she like collapses on the floor. And she's like in and out of consciousness. And that's when she hears someone barge in. And she looks, and it's Nehemiah, this strong ass bitch. She came in, she sees Selena on the ground, covered, like looking cold and frozen and decrepit. She picks up Selena and carries her to the bathroom to get cleaned up. And the water, whenever Selena gets in there, it feels like alcohol on a wound. It's not feeling great. It's burning.
Almost like she's like poisoned.
Yeah, almost like she got poisoned or like venom, like from the Ritterak or whatever, I guess, whatever he bit her. And so she's not doing too well. And it's obvious that she's dying. So Nehemiah starts to do something and it causes Selena's arm to glow. And she's seeing word markings show up all over her arm, the arm that was bit by this Ritterak. And as she sees it glowing, she's also still passing out. And so she does end up lose consciousness and she's out.
I'd be like, I'm hallucinating. This whole thing has been a dream. I must have been hallucinating.
It can't be real. And also, yes, please knock me out. Let me just go. We've said it once. We've said it twice. We aren't the girls to continue fighting.
No, I'll take my losses.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if I'm going to go to sleep, I'll just go to sleep. You know what I mean? I'm not going to push it.
Just let me out. Do what you got to do. I trust you. You got it. No worries. You do what you got to do, but I'm a head out.
I'm a head out. Right. So whenever Selena comes back to, she is waking back up in her bed and she sees Nehemiah watching her, waiting for an explanation. Selena knows Nehemiah isn't the one behind the killing anymore because she obviously saw Cain doing all of this and Nehemiah quite literally just saved her life. So she's like, fine, here's the tea. And she tells her everything. Selena tells her who she really is. She tells her how she learned the Elway language by being a slave in Endovir. She tells her why she's here at the castle for this stupid competition for the king to be his personal champion. She doesn't tell her everything. Obviously, we know that Selena's got more of a history with her life and her other motives for why she ended up the places that she did. But she just tells her the need to know stuff for this moment. And they promise each other to keep it honest. They always promise to tell each other the truth and keep each other in the loop of what's going on and what each other are dealing with so this doesn't happen again. Nehemiah ends up giving Selena a new name because Selena finds herself in this weird predicament of being the personal champion for the king and having to kill for the king who killed her whole family and her whole kingdom. She doesn't want to be here, but she has to be here because of the circumstances that she's in. Like, there's just no way around it. And basically, Nehemiah gave her this new name, and it's translating to the spirit that could not be broken. And it's supposed to be a reminder for her that though she might have to do heavy things that don't align with her, she and everybody who around her who knows her true heart. And that name that she gave her was Elentia.
Elentia, yeah. Oh, that's so precious.
I think so too. I just feel bad. And so does Selena for thinking that Nehemiah was the one behind all of this and like thinking that she was setting everybody up trying to kill people when Nehemiah obviously has a heart and sees the good in people. Like she can see that Selena is a good person and she's trying to help her in her own way. And I love that she gave her that new name. She's like, you don't have to go by this name, how everybody knows you. You can be your own person. And if it helps, it'll give you a new name. And then that's going to be your reminder. I thought that was really sweet.
It is so sweet, but I also do feel like Nehemiah is definitely hiding something. Like she's keeping things close to the chest, you know? So I feel like though Selena feels reassured that Nehemiah is doing things to help her, I also feel like she's got her own agenda in some sort. And I think we don't know what that is yet. I don't think she was wrong to kind of second guess what her motives are a little bit. I think she was very valid in doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I'm confused because she's using these word markings almost like magic. So is that magic that she's like constructing up, or is that something else entirely?
I don't know. It's so crazy.
Because I thought that magic didn't work. So, and I'm seeing these word markings are summoning creatures and are portals, and Nehemiah's making things glow. I don't know. There's something going on with Princess Nehemiah.
There's something going on.
Something's going on in here, and I'm about to find out. So I'll keep reading. As the competition is obviously getting closer to the end, we know that the final duel is coming around the corner. And we also know that more champions are going to show up dead. So Nox and Selena are talking during one of their training days, and Nox ends up, I don't know how he does it. He's a smart cookie, I guess, but he figures out who she really is. And he's like, you're Selena Sardothian? And she's like, excellent. You're a genius. Congratulations. Why don't you actually use this as an opportunity to leave? Because you know I'm not going to lose, and you know Kane's not going to lose, and you know that these other two people aren't going to lose. So that means you're probably going to lose and you're going to die. And he's like, that's a valid point. I will skedaddle tonight. And he does.
She's also like, listen, there are people dying left and right in this competition. Somebody or something is picking us off one by one. And she's like, I can't leave. If I leave, I go back to Endovir. She was like, but you can escape.
Which also, too, I am also wondering, I know that they could leave at any point and be fine. Does he leave or does he sneak out? I don't think I really understand that. Because wouldn't they be watched?
Yeah, so he snuck out because remember in the like beginning, middle of the story, somebody was trying to leave and make a scene and they shot them. I think they said that they can leave, but nobody's leaving alive type thing.
I just don't know how he got out because I thought that they were all being like super monitored.
She's the one being the most monitored. She's the one that's the most heavily guarded. I don't think anybody else had nearly as much of a hard time.
So Nox ends up leaving. As the final duel is coming around, the king returns back from his shady mission. And the reason why I say it's shady is because Kale is like, he lost every single one of the men that he brought with him to this mission. And he's not telling me anything. I'm asking him what went wrong. Why are these people dead? Why are you the only one back alive? I'm the captain of your guard and you're not telling me what happened? Like, that's sus. So Kale is like, something's going on. He's got some spidey senses going on about the king, and he doesn't want to say anything quite yet because obviously he's still the king, and the king is a psychopath. And then with Kale, Selena and Kale are still growing their relationship together. They're still working out. They're eating together. He's learning to trust her a lot more as a person. And he's even looking out after her well-being as she navigates her feeling with Dorian, because her and Dorian have been little sneaky links over here. They've not been doing crazy things. They've definitely kissed. Yeah. They've definitely touched and stuff like that. But like, they haven't done the deed yet, but it's getting steamy. We know that much. All right. So duel day comes around and we'll just set the scene real quick. It has been a cold, like winter, spring transitional time right now. So outside it's wet, it's cold, it's windy. It's not ideal for the final competition, in my opinion. I would hate this very much. And everybody is out there, like the King's Court, Dorian, Lady Caltaine, Duke Parrington, obviously, and even Nehemiah shows up because now that she knows who she is, she's like, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to stand beside her. I'll be there for you. And she gives Selena her Elway staff, which is very political, like, move for her to do, because obviously the king is right there and he's trying to conquer Elway. And I think that seeing Selena fight with the Elway staff, like, it's a very traditional weapon for Elway, and she's fighting with it against the other champions to become the king's champion, that's a move right there, in my opinion.
It's very symbolic. And Kale offers her his own sword as well. And basically then Nehemiah offers right afterward. And she's like, I'd like you to fight with the spirit of Elway or Yulway. I don't know. I always say it wrong.
Don't ask me.
She's like, technically the sword would be a smarter choice, Kale's sword. Mm-hmm. However, she's like, I definitely think that I'd much rather fight for Elway, and take the staff, which was definitely of lesser quality, but more symbolic to what she wants. So after she chooses the staff from Nehemiah, basically they split the 4 remaining champions into groups of 2. So there'll be 2 final duels and then the duels for the champions from the winners of both of those. Cain goes first with his duel and he beats him very quickly, like within a minute or 2. And then Selena's battle starts and she's kind of upset. She's like, do you think it was an accident that they put me up here to go second and then I'll have to immediately start my duel with Cain so I won't even get any time to recover? And Kale's like, yeah, probably not, but you're going to do it. You're going to knock it out. So she gets in the ring and he's kind of snickering at her, being like, you don't belong in this competition. You know, you're just a little girl, blah, blah, blah. You think you can beat me? And he throws one punch at her. She kind of ducks, covers, and then plants her foot directly in the center of his chest and knocks him right out of the ring. And she wins within like 30 seconds. And she's like, basically, keep my name out of your mouth. They basically are like, great. So we have our final pairing. It's going to be Cain and Selena dueling against each other. And they say, we're going to have a little celebratory glass of wine for our 2 last remaining champions.
So they obviously get the wines. And let's go ahead and say this. Every time I see wine being offered to her, now I have PTSD and I'm always going to assume that it's poison. So I don't know why she doesn't assume that it's poisoned as well. But they give her this wine and she drinks it. And then the king's like, great, let's go again. No break at all. There was barely, he was like, let's toast and celebrate. Takes one sip and immediately goes into the next round. And we know that the plan for Duke Parrington and Lady Caltaine to sabotage Selena was going to happen. And what they ended up doing was poisoning that wine, obviously. And they poisoned it with the poison that I guess is like senseless, so you can't smell it and you can't taste it. So I guess we'll give her a pass on why she didn't pick this up, but I would be very sus. Okay, so after they drink the wine, they go ahead and get back into the competition ring, and Selena can tell that she's been poisoned. Like, she can tell something is not right. She's like, I can't say anything because if I say that somebody sabotaged me or somebody set me up, they're going to force me into saying that I lost a competition and send me back to Endovir. And I can't do that. So she's like, I need to just get this thing done. And so she tries to fight Cain, but he ends up just beating the shit out of her. Like, she is stumbling. She can't see anything. She's trying her best to swing, but she's missing. And she's just completely off. And everybody can see that, to the point where Kale is like standing off by the corner, trying not to cry, watching her get beat up. Dorian is sitting at his seat, watching her get beat up, and also dealing with the dilemma of not being able to speak up because it's obvious that she's not her normal self. She's obviously impaired for some reason. But if Dorian said something either, the same thing would happen. They would deem her as losing the competition and send her back. So he has to stay quiet as well. From Kale's perspective, the captain of the Royal Guard, he has never even been into a combat fight before. So this to him has been like completely new. It's something eye-opening. Like, he's like, oh my God, I've never had a fight like this before. They are actually going after each other. She looks like she's about to die. I don't know what to do. I don't know what she's going to do because she's obviously like fucked up. She can't really see what's going on. But he has to stand back where he's at watching her. So not only is Selena getting fucked up by Cain physically and getting weakened and disoriented by the minute, she starts to hallucinate. Awesome. She is seeing these scary demonic creatures flying all around her. Cain looks like his own demon as well. And he's saying things to her that he should not know. He's saying things about her parents, her past, where she's from. And she's like, shut the fuck up. You don't know me like that. And she's freaking out. She is basically lying dead on the ground, and she's trying to reach out to the circle to leave and just tap out. And Kale runs up to her, laying on the ground with her, reaching out towards her. And he's like, get up and keep fighting. Don't hold back. Like, just get up and go. Keep going. So she musters up as much strength as she can. She gets up. She tries to hit Kane. Unfortunately, Kane still is fucking her up. So he grabs her and he throws her into the clock tower, that scary clock tower that has the gargoyles and stuff. And she gets transported almost to a whole different dimension. Like, she was seeing these demons before with her hallucination. Now she's in the demons world. So she, in her mind, is in a different world entirely. Nobody else that's watching this duel happen can see what she sees. And they just see her kind of like swatting at these creatures, yelling at things that aren't there. She looks crazy, and everybody can tell that she is not herself. There is something going on, but no one wants to say anything. No one wants to help her. And so she is fighting. Everybody's watching Selena. Nobody can help her. And that's when Nehemiah is like, fuck it. I am not going to just sit here and watch my girl get got like this. I'm going to do something. And she's standing off to the side. So not everybody can see her doing this, but she starts doing some like special spells or something. And she makes this glowing light happen. I don't know, but it's to help Selena. It's supposed to help bring Selena some type of protection. And guess who comes in? It's Queen Elena. She barges in through this portal, and she is like decked out into this beautiful but like badass armor to fight. Like, it's a warrior's armor. And she's fighting these demons and pushing them back and holding the line, helping Selena get back on her feet. And she runs up to Selena and she's like, I can't heal you. I can't fix everything, but I can take this poison out of you. So she grabs Selena's arm. She sucks the poison out of her. And she's like, you got to keep going. And so like a resurge of fight, I guess, claimed over Selena. So the poison is gone from Selena, and she ends up getting like this resurge of energy, and she stands up, gathering all the strength she can, pushing through the pain that she's in. And she stands up, and the poison's gone. The poison gets sucked out of Selena, and she musters up the strength to stand up through all the pain that she's in. She's beat up. She's got a shoulder dislocated. She's cut. And Kane is getting blinded by this blue light that's on her forehead. Everybody can see this blue light shining on her forehead. And I guess that distracts Kane enough to where she is like, I am gonna get him. And she slides to his unguarded side and buries her broken staff right into his side. And she basically disables him, gets him down on the ground. She slices him up a few times because she's over him at this point. I don't know how she actually got to this point because she was really beat up, and I really thought she was gonna get got. But she is there. She's standing over Kane. He's down. And she's like, should I just end this now? Because this guy knows about word markings. He's summoning these Ritterat creatures. And if the king finds out that he knows about these word markings, he's going to want to know more and figure out how he can take control over these word markings and become like this all-powerful person. So she's like, maybe I should just kill him. But she doesn't, because she knows, again, if she were to do that, it's going to look bad on her and they would send her back to Endovier. So she's like, I'm going to play by the rules, and I'm going to let them say who they think the champion is. And she waits for the final word of the king. And the king begrudgingly admits that Selena is the winner, which is all good and dandy because now everybody can come make sure she's okay and make sure she doesn't bleed out and die. And Dorian runs to grab her as she's bleeding out everywhere, trying to keep her awake. She collapses. Kale is sitting there off to the sideline, just assessing the situation, everything that just happened. And he watches the king give Kane a nod. And that's when Kane nods back and he stands up while her back is turned. Kane stands up and he's about to go stab her, kill her. And that's when Kale jumps in between with his sword and stabs Kane. And that was Kale's very first kill. It was a really scary moment. So Kale just had his first kill. Selena just had the most terrible fight of her life and is about to die. And Dorian is establishing that he is in love with Selena. He has admitted, he's like, I don't care what happens after this. I can't say that she's not the love of my life. I love her so much, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure she's safe and protected and make sure that my dad respects what he just said and names her the champion. So they go take Selena off to go get healed up and patched up and all that other good stuff. But back at the dueling site where the King's Court is still at, Duke Parrington is sitting at the table when Lady Caltaine comes up, and she's like, what the fuck was that? She was supposed to die. We were supposed to like sabotage her enough. Like, why didn't Cain kill her? Like, she's supposed to be dead at this point. You poisoned her, and it didn't poison her enough. She's obviously stronger than that. She's just going off and off and off about this plan that they had. And that's when Duke Parrington is being a little fake ass hoe. And he's like, what? You poisoned her? In front of everybody. He's like making a big scene. He's like, you poisoned her? This was your idea? You sabotaged it? And she gets in trouble. And so she gets sent off to the royal dungeons. Yeah. I was like, that is so fake, because she was told that the king wanted them to do this. So that's the only reason why she was a part of this plan. And now Duke Parrington just threw all of this onto her. That's fake. That's fake as hell. Okay, so Lady Caltaine gets sent off to the royal dungeons. So fake of Duke Parrington. We'll get into that later, especially in this next book. But Dorian the next day is going up to his dad. He's like fed up with his dad at this point. He's like, I am going to make sure that you are going to keep your word and make sure Celaena is being deemed as the champion. You're going to respect that. And also, Duke Parrington is kind of a little sleazeball for doing that whole conquest in Nehemiah's country and killing all those rebels. Like, I told him not to do anything until you got back, and he did that anyway. So something needs to be addressed there. Nehemiah comes to visit Celaena the next day after she's getting like all healed up and recovering. And Nehemiah is like, basically, I'm so happy you're okay, but I want you to know that I did save your life. It was all because of me, which I thought was so funny, because it was true. She would not have made it through that without Nehemiah summoning Elena, which I don't know how she did that, but blessings on blessings. And Nehemiah ends up telling her too that she's like, I have this gift that allows me to see things that might not always be there, but like, you must have magic in your body because you were seeing things that the bloodbane poison was interacting with. It's normally hiding these things from the normal person's eye, but you have magic. I have magic in my blood. So we were able to see that. And that's why I started doing my little swirly things. And then, so after that, Nehemiah is like, yeah, I also know a lot about word marking. So that's why I was helping you out. I was actually doing my own word marking, because in my culture, only for the royals, only for a select few, do we know how to do this. And we save it for a last resort, like for healing and protection. That's all we're supposed to use it for, and no other reason. So it's like a super low key thing. And she doesn't like to talk about it a lot. She actually, it makes it an effort not to let anybody find out about it. So that's why she's being so sus about like the word markings.
Yeah. And she also says that basically word marks work outside of magic. They are not technically magic. They're like a very old kind of magic-esque thing, but they are not typical magic. So they kind of work outside of magic. And so Celaena's even more, the king shouldn't know anything about this. One, because it's similar to magic. And two, because if he had access to that, he could really destroy things.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nehemiah ends up telling her that she's been busy doing her own thing, sometimes like not hanging out with Celaena, because Cain has been summoning these Ritterak creatures, but he doesn't know how to get them back to where he got them from. So she has been doing everything she can to hunt these creatures down and kill them herself. And she's also telling Celaena, also, it was me putting all those word markings underneath your bed, and it was meant to be a protection spell for you. So that was really annoying that you kept washing those all away.
She said, I don't know why you couldn't just leave them. I was trying to help you. But if it were me, I'd be like, why didn't you just tell me?
Tell me. Yeah.
Why not just tell me you're trying to do something to protect me, psycho?
Whenever I was reading this, I'm like, she would save so much heartache if she just told people what was going on. But I guess that's the dilemma. She has trust issues. So after it's been established that Celaena is going to be the champion for the king, she realizes that she can't continue on this relationship with Dorian. So she actually has to break things off with Dorian. She's like, it's not you, it's me. She's like, this would never work out because I'm literally an assassin. You're the crown prince. Like, we couldn't be together even if we wanted to be. So that's kind of a sad little heartbreak for little Dorian, because I feel like in this situation, I feel like he would feel used, just because he just confirmed that she is going to be respected as the champion, and he's been helping her out. Like, I don't know. I just feel like if I were Dorian, I would feel used at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think he does feel like that. I think that even like crosses through his mind a couple times. Mm-hmm. Maybe she was just using me to stay ahead in this competition, to have a little friendship, but like ultimately knowing that she was not going to stay with him, just using him for whatever advantages she could get.
Yeah. And honestly, I know she's a smart girl. Whenever I read that one part about the one champion who tried running away and he was sending a message and it reminded her to play her cards right, that was where I felt like she was like, okay, I got to really make sure I can make it to the end. And Dorian is definitely that way in. So that's why I feel like she was using him. I mean, I know that she obviously had real feelings for Dorian, but it definitely does look like she was probably using him to her advantage. I'm just saying.
I think subconsciously, maybe she was a little bit. I definitely think she did have real kind of surprising feelings for him. But I also feel like she's been in such a fight or flight mode for basically her whole entire life. How could she not, to some degree, play to her advantages?
Yeah.
I don't, like, in my heart, I don't think that was her ultimate motive, but I don't think it was an unwelcome side effect.
But the other thing that got me thinking that she was using Dorian is because after she breaks up with him, she, in her POV, we hear her noticing more about Kale and saying like, oh, Kale is kind of attractive. Kale is maybe more than a friend. Kale has always been there for me the way I needed somebody to be there for me. It's always been Kale. Why didn't I see this? Because that's what I said in the beginning. I was like, why is she going after Dorian when Kale is obviously the guy who's meant to be for her?
I think it's hard because if I'm imagining myself a little 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old girl, the glitz and the glam and the kind of bad boy, the flirty, you know, that kind of guy, I think would be my pick too. I think that that's who I would go for. But Kale has been her biggest supporter and her best friend, except in the beginning whenever he despised her. But, you know, they grew on each other a lot.
So that was basically the end of the story for Selena. But the plot thickens because we have a different perspective to end this book on, which is the king's version. So we're going to pick up from where Dorian had confronted the king about Duke Parrington sending armies to Elway to kill all the rebels, and then also how the king needs to respect his decision to make Selena the champion. And this kind of irks the king's feathers, I guess, a little bit because he's like, all right, something's going on between them. So after Dorian leaves from confronting his dad about all of this, the king talks to Duke Parrington privately. And that's where we learn that he and Duke Parrington have been scheming, is I guess the correct word to say. And apparently the only reason why he'd let Selena live is because he saw that word marking on her forehead. And he is actually really well versed in word markings. That's where the plot twist for me, because I was like, oh, shit. And it's not just he knows about them. He's well versed in word markings. So he was letting Selena live so that way he could learn more about it and see what that symbol meant. But he wants to figure that out before he gets rid of her finally. He also is telling Duke Parrington that this ring that they all have, the black rings that they all have, it's working really good because Duke Parrington was using that ring's power, I guess, to manipulate Lady Caltaine, and that's why she was having all these headaches. And Duke Parrington is like, yeah, it's been working really good. And the king is like, well, great, this is good news. Let's see who else we could try to influence with this power. So at this point, I think he's going to try to get a hold of Kale and make Kale into a bad guy. And I'm just really scared for that because I don't want it to be baby Kale. I love him. But anyways, okay, I think we should wrap up this book right now. I think let's just go ahead and tie all the ends and really summarize what just happened. We got Selena out of this camp. She was in this champion competition. She fights the top dog at the end under poison, and she gets saved by Nehemiah using her word marking skills to summon Queen Elena and help save her. And then Selena breaks up with Dorian, realizes that Kale might be kind of cute and could be her partner, and that Nehemiah is a true friend. We love her, and she's going to be honest with her from now on and help her out, and they're going to be able to just live, laugh, love. And Duke Parrington is a fake little sleazeball, and he sent Lady Caltaine to the royal dungeons for admitting that she was helping poison Selena. So she's in the royal dungeons, and then the king is apparently super well versed with these word markings anyways. So everything that Selena was worried about is coming true.
Yeah, that's super unfortunate. I feel like we talked a lot about tying it back into Assassin's Blade a little bit. We talked a lot about how basically the kingdoms have been overtaken overnight by Adarlan, and to find out that the king knows this kind of outside magic ability. It doesn't say what he's used it for or if he has used it, but that's definitely, kind of food for thought. He knows this. He was able to overtake the kingdoms in a matter of a few weeks when they kind of came from nothing. So just food for thought that the king has this ability that not a lot of people know about. And obviously he's shown to be merciless and a conqueror. So it's not good.
Not great. And I'm wondering from this point, so as this is my first time reading everything through, and as I was reading this book, it's obviously way better than the Assassin's Blade, but am I still hooked on it the way I was hooked on ACOTAR? I'm going to be honest, no, not after Throne of Glass 1. But I do know that it gets better. As everybody says, you got to keep pushing through. The story's going to develop. And that's how I felt at the end of this. I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. It's not giving everything quite yet, but we're getting somewhere. That's how I feel at the end of this book.
I also feel like ACOTAR had the first 3 books are, all about Feyre, and we won't even give it away, her person that she's with.
Yeah.
And there's so much that happens in those 3 books, and they're all kind of crushed in together. And then the others are side stories. This whole entire series follows one person all the way through. So there's just so much happening in like all of these books, but there's also a lot of character development. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of side plots. There's a lot, that kind of ties into the end. So I feel like I don't think ACOTAR was rushed at all. I just think that there was a lot of big things that happened in 3 books. Yeah. And I think that these books are a little bit more drawn out for like the plot and the growth and stuff like that.
It's definitely very much a plot-driven kind of series for sure. It's not just like a book you read and you're entertained and you're satiated. You have to continue the journey to hear everything you want to hear. But yeah, that's basically the end of the Throne of Glass book, the very first Throne of Glass book. Next week, we're going to start reading Crown of Midnight, and we're going to start over chapters 1 through 10. So if you're reading along, go ahead and read those chapters so that way you can follow along the conversation. And if you don't want to read along, that's totally fine. Just come back for a fun little story time.
Okay, peekers. That's it for this week's plot. We'll start by peeking at Crown at Midnight next week.
See you then. Bye.
Bye.